My name is Mike, and I'm about to tell you a story that'll make you question everything you think you know about trust, marriage, and the price of serving your country. I'm 38 years old, a master sergeant with the 101st Airborne, and what happened to me while I was deployed in Syria changed everything I believed about love, loyalty, and coming home. Picture this: you're sitting in a forward operating base, sand in your boots, sweat on your brow, and your laptop screen glowing in the dim light of your quarters. The subject line reads, "We need to talk, important." Sounds innocent enough, right? Wrong. That email contained divorce papers, and my wife Sarah had already moved her new boyfriend Marcus into our house in Colorado Springs. 13 years of marriage, ended with a PDF attachment and 3 cold sentences. But here's where the story gets interesting, where the plot thickens like smoke in a closed room. Sarah thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She thought deployment meant disconnection, that distance equaled weakness. What she didn't realize was that I'd been reading the signs for months before I left, like tracking enemy movement through broken branches and disturbed earth. The changes had been subtle at first, delicate as spider silk but just as revealing. New passwords on her phone that she'd guard like classified intel. Weekend trips with friends I'd never met, friends who seemed to exist only in her stories. Late nights at the real estate office where she worked, but paychecks that never seemed to reflect those extra hours. Then came the gym membership she never used, clothes that suggested a life I wasn't part of, and conversations that felt rehearsed, like she was reading from a script written for someone else's marriage. So I did what any good soldier does when sensing an ambush: I prepared. Not dramatically, not with confrontations or accusations that would alert the enemy to my awareness. Instead, I moved like smoke through my own life, securing what mattered. Important documents found their way to a safety deposit box across town. My grandfather's Purple Heart, my father's watch, my mother's jewelry, all relocated to a storage unit registered under my name only. A separate bank account opened quietly at a different institution, fed by modest diversions from my paycheck. Not enough to trigger alarms, but sufficient to ensure I wouldn't be starting from absolute zero if the ground gave way beneath my feet. The night before deployment, Sarah kissed me goodbye at the airport with eyes as dry as the desert I was heading to. Her embrace felt like shaking hands with a business associate, professional and distant. I should have known then, but hope is a stubborn companion, and part of me still believed I was reading the situation wrong. I wasn't. What Sarah didn't understand was that while she was planning her exit strategy, I was 3 moves ahead, playing a longer game with higher stakes. She saw deployment as her opportunity. I saw it as time to let her reveal her true intentions while I watched from afar, gathering intelligence like any good operation requires. I'd met Sarah in 2009 at a community college football game in Colorado Springs. She was studying business administration, working part-time at a real estate office. We married 10 months later, young and optimistic, believing that love could conquer the unique challenges of military life. She used to say she was proud of my service, though she never quite grasped what it meant to have the Army as more than just a job. Her family was civilian through and through. Her father sold insurance, her mother taught elementary school, her brother worked in IT. Military life was foreign territory to them, exotic and slightly concerning. We bought our house in 2012, a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a quiet neighborhood popular with military families. The VA loan was in my name, but I added Sarah to the deed because sharing seemed like what married couples did. My parents had died within 2 years of each other. Dad from a heart attack, Mom from cancer, leaving me a small inheritance that we used to pay off student loans and establish a financial cushion. Over the years, I deployed 5 times. Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice, Syria once. Each return home revealed Sarah becoming increasingly restless, like an actor growing tired of a role that no longer challenged her. She'd make comments about friends who divorced and were finally living their lives, or ask when I planned to get a real job outside the military. I'd suggest counseling, she'd dismiss it as unnecessary. "We're just going through a phase," she'd say, but phases don't typically involve secret phone calls and mysterious weekend disappearances. The transformation accelerated in 2020. Sarah became irritated when I called during her girls' nights, started talking about how her friend Jessica had left her military husband and was thriving now. She'd make casual comments about how different we'd become, how we wanted different things. I suggested we work on it together. She'd change the subject or suggest we were fine, just adjusting to life changes. Then came the signs that made my military training kick into overdrive. New clothes that suggested a different lifestyle. Stories about coworkers I'd never met at office parties I was never invited to. A sudden interest in physical fitness that never seemed to produce actual fitness results. Technology habits that shifted toward secrecy and protective behaviors around devices that had once been shared openly between us. I didn't confront her because confrontation reveals your position before you understand the full scope of the threat. Instead, I observed and prepared, trusting the instincts that had kept me alive in hostile territory overseas. My gut was sending signals that something significant was approaching, and experience had taught me to trust those internal warnings. 3 weeks after receiving the divorce papers, I was reviewing our finances on my secure laptop when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Our joint savings account, which had contained $52,000 when I deployed, now showed a balance of $127.83. Our checking account had been systematically drained through a series of transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. $89,400 gone, moved in carefully timed increments that suggested planning rather than impulse. Rodriguez, my bunk mate, noticed me staring at the screen. "Bad news from home?" he asked without looking up from his magazine. "Account irregularities," I replied, closing the laptop. He nodded. Military guys understand when to leave things alone. That night, I used the base communication center to call our bank. The customer service representative confirmed what I suspected. Sarah had been moving money for weeks, small amounts initially, then larger sums once I was overseas. The major transfers coincided with my deployment date, suggesting coordination and premeditation. I hung up and stood in the hallway, watching other soldiers video chatting with their families, laughing with their children, sharing normal moments of connection across vast distances. My world was collapsing through financial fraud and betrayal while theirs continued normally, and the contrast felt surreal. That's when Martinez found me. He'd pulled me out of a dangerous situation during a patrol 2 months earlier, so I trusted him with information I wouldn't share with others. "My wife has emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house," I said simply. "Divorce papers arrived last week." Martinez didn't offer platitudes or false optimism. He asked, "What's your response plan?" "Still developing," I replied. "Let me know if you need tactical support," he said, and I knew he meant it. That night, insomnia led me to access our home security system remotely, something Sarah had probably forgotten I could do from overseas. The cameras revealed a pickup truck I didn't recognize in our driveway, a man I'd never seen using my tools in my garage, walking our dog through the neighborhood I'd carefully chosen for its safety and community. There was Sarah, laughing in the kitchen I'd renovated during my last leave, cooking dinner for this stranger who was wearing my college sweatshirt and drinking from my coffee mug. The scene should have broken my heart, but instead it crystallized something harder and clearer inside me. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about strategy. I opened my laptop and began making a list. Contact David, my army buddy who'd become a lawyer after his service. Research the terms of our VA loan and what rights it afforded me. Investigate emergency leave possibilities. Review documentation about the house refinance Sarah had mentioned casually several months ago. Check the security on my military pension accounts. Anger had transformed into something more useful: focus. This felt familiar, like mission planning, breaking down complex problems into manageable tactical objectives. At 0430, before my shift began, I sent David an encrypted email with the subject line, "Need legal consultation, urgent and confidential." His response came within hours: "Call me on the secure line immediately." When I finished that conversation, I understood exactly what needed to happen. No confrontations, no emotional appeals, no dramatic gestures. Just patience, observation, and allowing Sarah's own actions to construct the trap that would ultimately contain her. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't announce my return to Sarah, didn't call or text. Instead, I checked into a hotel in downtown Colorado Springs under an assumed name and contacted David for a face-to-face meeting. We met at a truck stop 30 miles outside the city. "You look terrible," he said, sliding into the booth opposite me. "Feel worse," I replied. David opened a briefcase and spread documents across the table. "Everything we discussed, plus something interesting I discovered while investigating your financial situation." He handed me a separate document. "Refinance application with your signature, except it's not your signature. Close, but not perfect. Someone attempted forgery but missed crucial details." "Sarah did this?" I asked, though I already knew. 4 months ago. Used the house equity to secure a $280,000 loan. Since the VA loan is exclusively in your name, your signature was required for this transaction. I processed this information. So she forged my signature, secured a loan against our house, cleared our bank accounts, and filed for divorce while I was deployed? Efficient operation, David agreed. But there's more. She listed her boyfriend as a co-applicant. Marcus Henderson has a criminal background, 2 DUI convictions and a fraud charge from 2018. The scope of the betrayal was expanding beyond simple infidelity into organized criminal activity. "What are my options?" I asked. "Several," David said, "but first you need to decide what outcome you want." I thought carefully. "I want what's legally mine, and I want consequences for criminal behavior." David smiled. "Then here's our strategy." The next day, I drove past our house. Marcus's truck was absent, but Sarah's car sat in the driveway. I parked down the street and observed for an hour, considering whether to knock on the door and confront the situation directly. But that wasn't the plan. Instead, I drove to the bank that had processed the refinance. The loan officer's face went pale when I showed him my military identification, compared my authentic signature to the forged document, and explained that I'd been deployed when this loan was supposedly signed in person. "I'll need to report this immediately to our fraud department," he said. "I've already filed a police report," I replied. That evening, Sarah sent a text, "Someone's been asking questions at the bank about the house. Marcus says there's trouble. What are you doing?" I didn't respond. The following day, I visited the county clerk's office and filed paperwork contesting the fraudulent refinance, registering formal notice that no property changes could occur without my physical presence and verified signature. 2 days later, Sarah called. I let it go to voicemail. "Mike, we need to discuss this situation. The bank contacted me about the house loan. If this is about the divorce, we can handle it like adults." Adults. The same word from her divorce email. I still didn't respond. David called that afternoon with an update. "They've frozen the refinance funds, and your wife's boyfriend was arrested this morning. He was driving your truck on a suspended license. Those DUI convictions made his license invalid. They impounded the vehicle." "Good," I said. "There's more. When they searched the truck, they found prescription pads from the real estate office where Sarah works. Not blank ones. These had been filled out for controlled substances. The situation was metastasizing beyond what I'd anticipated. Sarah wasn't just cheating and stealing, she was potentially involved in prescription fraud. What happens now? The police are expanding their investigation. This could become federal if it crosses state lines or involves VA benefits fraud. I hung up and sat in my hotel room, realizing this had grown beyond personal betrayal into something that could destroy multiple lives. Part of me wanted to call Sarah, warn her about what was coming. Old habits. But then I remembered the security footage of her laughing in our kitchen while I was risking my life overseas, and that impulse disappeared. The next morning, I met with Detective Thompson from the Bank Fraud Division. Short, tired-looking, with coffee stains on his shirt. "This happens more frequently than you'd expect," he said, spreading documents across his desk. "Spouse deploys, other spouse sees opportunity. What's the next step?" I asked. "We've frozen the fraudulent refinance funds, but there's a complication. Some money has already been transferred. About $73,000. Where did it go?" Thompson hesitated. "I'm not supposed to share investigation details, but considering this is your house, your forged signature, and your stolen money." He turned his computer screen toward me. "These are the transfer records." I scanned the list. Multiple payments to someone named Robert Chen, not Marcus. Another person I'd never heard of. "Who's Robert Chen?" I asked. "Not my department, but you should have your attorney subpoena these records." I called David immediately. "Robert Chen," I said. "Give me an hour," he replied. When he called back, the news was worse than I'd imagined. Robert Chen is a real estate investor who specializes in quick sales and cash transactions. The payments to him were likely for arranging a rapid sale of your house below market value. She was planning to sell our house? The realization hit like a sucker punch. It appears so. But here's the interesting part: Chen has done business with Marcus Henderson before. 3 transactions in the past 18 months. Marcus seems to have a pattern of getting involved with women going through divorces or with deployed spouses. Each time, the woman's house gets sold below market value to one of Chen's clients, Marcus gets a percentage, then he disappears. This wasn't just about Sarah leaving me for another man. This was a systematic operation targeting military families. "How many other families?" I asked. "I've found evidence of at least 4 similar cases. Maybe more." "And Sarah?" "Hard to determine if she's a victim or a participant. Either way, I've contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. This involves multiple states, military personnel, and VA loans. They're very interested." That night, I sat in my hotel room with a beer, trying to process everything. Was my entire marriage a setup? Had Sarah been recruited by Marcus, or had she stumbled into his scheme? Did it matter at this point? My phone buzzed. "Sarah again, Mike, please call me. The bank is saying there's fraud involved, and Marcus was arrested driving your truck. I don't understand what's happening." I stared at the message, then typed, "Who is Robert Chen?" 3 dots appeared as she started typing, then stopped. Started again, stopped. Finally, "I don't know what you're talking about." $73,000 in transfers. "House sale arrangements," I wrote. No response for 15 minutes. Then, "It's not what you think." I turned off my phone. The next morning, David called with news that the FBI wanted to meet. They've been investigating Marcus and Chen for months. "You're not the first victim, but you might be the case that provides enough evidence to prosecute successfully." For the first time since receiving those divorce papers, I felt something approaching satisfaction. Not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was finally surfacing. I met FBI agents Patel and Donovan at their field office. They recorded my statement, copied all the documentation David and I had assembled. "Your case helps establish a clear pattern," Agent Patel explained. "It demonstrates organization and intent, which elevates this from individual fraud to conspiracy." "What about Sarah?" I asked. The agents exchanged glances. "We're still determining her level of involvement," Donovan said carefully. "Did she ever mention financial pressure or suggest selling the house?" I thought back. She'd say we were house poor, that we should downsize. I never saw the financial necessity, our mortgage was manageable on my salary. Patel made notes. When did those conversations start? About 8 months ago, around the time she must have met Marcus. More questions, more documentation. When we finished, Patel handed me her card. We'll be in touch. Meanwhile, don't contact your wife or Marcus. We need to build this case methodically. Understood, I said. That evening, I drove through our old neighborhood, parked down the street from our house. Marcus's truck was back, must have made bail. Sarah's car was gone. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, we need to meet in person. Tomorrow at Memorial Park, 2 p.m. I showed the message to David over breakfast the next morning. Don't go, he advised. Nothing productive can come from direct contact right now. I won't, I agreed. But I want to know what she's doing while she thinks I'm meeting her. We drove to our house at 1:30 p.m. At 1:45, Sarah left in her car, heading toward Memorial Park. 20 minutes later, a sedan with real estate company logos pulled up. Robert Chen stepped out, followed by Marcus from inside the house. Should we follow them? David asked. No need, I said, pulling out my phone. I installed interior security cameras last year. They upload to cloud storage. David grinned. You didn't mention that before. Didn't seem relevant until now. I opened the security app. Chen and Marcus were in our living room. Chen was photographing the interior while Marcus pointed out features. I increased the volume. Should list by week's end, Chen was saying. I have a buyer ready. Cash offer, as usual. How much? Marcus asked. $380,000. We list at $425,000, they offer $380,000, everyone's satisfied. What about the husband situation? Marcus asked. Becky says he's making trouble, but military guys are predictable. They make noise initially, but they have obligations, deployments. He'll accept a settlement to avoid complications. I turned to David. Are you recording this? Every word, he said, holding up his phone. I forwarded the security app access to Agent Patel with a message, live evidence, happening now. 30 minutes later, our house was surrounded by FBI vehicles. I watched from down the street as agents arrested Chen and Marcus, carrying boxes of evidence from our home. My phone rang. Got them discussing the fraud conspiracy on tape, Agent Patel said. Plus conspiracy, wire fraud, and attempting to sell property through false pretenses. We'll need another formal statement from you. Of course. Your wife just arrived at the scene. She appears distressed. I looked down the street. Sarah stood on our lawn, hands covering her mouth, watching FBI agents process what had been our home. What happens to her? I asked. That depends on what she knew and what you want to pursue. I watched Sarah for a long moment. 13 years of marriage, good years initially, before whatever this had become. I just want justice, I said. The federal case progressed rapidly. Marcus and Chen both accepted plea agreements, implicating each other and revealing a larger conspiracy targeting military families across multiple states. The operation had been running for 3 years, victimizing dozens of families. Sarah maintained she knew nothing about the broader scheme. She claimed Marcus had convinced her I was hiding money, planning to abandon her financially. She said the refinance was his idea, that she'd just followed his guidance. Maybe that was true. Maybe not. Either way, she agreed to a settlement, full restitution of stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the house or my military pension, signed confession about the forgery. In exchange, I didn't pursue criminal charges against her personally. The divorce was finalized 8 months after that email from Syria. Clean break, all assets accounted for. On the day the final paperwork was signed, Agent Patel called with an update. Marcus Henderson was sentenced today. 12 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Chen got 15. Thank you for letting me know, I said. There's something else. We found evidence they've targeted 14 other military families. Your case provided the evidence we needed to build the conspiracy charges. Those families are getting their money back because you fought this. After hanging up, I sat on my apartment balcony, watching the sunset and thinking about those other families. Other soldiers who deployed believing their homes and marriages were secure, only to return to betrayal. I hadn't planned to become the person who brought down Marcus and Chen's operation. I just wanted what was rightfully mine. But sometimes things develop in unexpected ways. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. I never intended for things to end this way. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. A year later, I sold the house. Too many memories, too much betrayal embedded in those walls. I used the proceeds to buy a small ranch outside Durango, Colorado. 4 bedrooms, 15 acres, a stream running behind it, no neighbors for miles. I took early retirement from the army. 22 years was enough. I'd given enough. I got a dog, German Shepherd named Ranger, and started a carpentry business, doing custom work for locals. Nothing elaborate, but it kept my hands busy and paid the bills. My military pension covered the rest. Sometimes I thought about Sarah, wondered where she'd ended up. David heard she'd moved back to her hometown in Oregon, working at another real estate office, starting over. I didn't hate her anymore. Honestly, I didn't feel much about her at all. She'd made her choices, and I'd made mine. One morning, I received a letter from a woman in San Antonio. Her husband was deployed with the Marines when Marcus and Chen had tried to run their scheme on her family. The FBI had given her my name as part of the case. You don't know me, she wrote, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to just walk away. I read it twice, then pinned it to my refrigerator. Some days, when the silence got overwhelming or the memories too sharp, I'd look at that letter and remember that something worthwhile had emerged from all of it. Last I heard, Marcus was still in federal prison. Chen too. The system worked, for once. As for me, I was building something new, one quiet day at a time. Something that couldn't be stolen, forged, or betrayed. Something that was authentically mine. And you know what? That was enough.